Tonight's big stories. NAIA Terminal 3 is hit by yet another power outage, the third such incident in the country's main gateway this year. A lawmaker is now calling for the resignation of all NAIA Terminal 3 workers, from top officials to low-level employees.
3 former Senate presidents have spoken up about the Maharlika Investment Fund bill. They say that the only way to rectify apparent errors in the bill is for Congress to recall its approval instead of letting legislative staff make corrections which they warn could lead to legal consequences. We'll be speaking with former Senate President Tito Soto later in the show.
And unemployment in the country continued to decline in April, with more Filipinos able to secure jobs. The question is, will this translate to faster economic growth? Well, we'll discuss with the economic cluster. Welcome to the show. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Sean Yao. Alright, brown out na naman.
Power outage na naman.
Top story,
time.
Friday na Friday.
Tatlong araw na, di ba, noong una,
Tapos
New Year,
New
tapos
Year,
Labor Day,
Labor Day.
tatlong araw na lang,
Eto,
Independence Day.
No weekend rin.
Oh,
That's right. You were just saying Monday. Yeah, long
kaya,
weekend.
no? Parang may pattern kaya.
Well, actually, alamin natin yung totoong cause. Pero sabi naman nila, no, within 37 minutes, I believe, is na-resolve agad yung power outage. And hindi masyadong maraming flights yung naantala. Pero tingnan natin yung picture na nakikita natin. Mukhang, I'm sure, hindi masaya yung mga
that
tao na
does
yan.
not look good. Look at all those people almost stranded. Not stranded, but
That
like
was- I believe
running
that
late
was
for
at-
their flights.
Yeah, the
And I'm
immigration
sure,
area.
pawis na pawis. At init na init.
Although power has been restored at the NAIA, Congresswoman Tina Pancho, the Vice Chairman of the House Committee on Transportation, is calling on all officials and employees of NAIA Terminal 3 to resign. Pancho expressed frustration over the inconvenience brought to passengers by the frequent power outages. The lawmaker says everyone working at Terminal 3 should let go of their posts, from the highest officials down to the lowest level employee.
From the top hanggang sa ibaba, wala tayong dapat iwanan. Wala pang tayong 6 months, ma'am. That is too much na, ma'am, na ginagawa nilang kahiya-hiya ang Pilipinas, ma'am. Dapat siguro mag-resign na lang sila at tumatanap tayo where someone is really efficient for the job.
Meanwhile, Senate Committee on Public Services Chair Grace Poe says the privatization of NAIA should not be an excuse for officials to drop the ball. She also called on the Transportation Department to install more generators at the terminal and to provide comfortable waiting areas for passengers, especially the elderly and those with medical conditions. Let's check in on the latest situation on the ground. Reporting to us live from the NAIA Terminal 3 is Camille Samonte. Camille, kamusta ang mga pasahero dyan? What do you have? What are you seeing? Mahaba pa ba ang mga pila?
Yes, Reg, the operations here in Terminal 3 are now back to normal. So, wala na nga yung mahabang pila na naranasan kanina sa mga check-in counters at immigration matapos ngang makaranas ng kalahating oras na power outage.
Our 3 power outages this year, 1 in New Year, 1 on Labor Day. At ito nga, malapit na Independence Day. Ano ba yung sinasabi nilang naging dahilan ng power outage this time around?
Yes, Gretch, according to the MIAA, the brief outage was caused by a procedural lapse during a comprehensive electrical audit process. So this was after a technician forgot to unplug a test cable before energizing the substations, resulting in a power shortage.
Alright, so kami, linawin lang natin, no? This was actually a human error and walang kinalaman sa faulty equipment. May kinalaman ba ito dito sa electronic or electricity audit na ginagawa ng Meralco?
Yes, Sean, if you will recall nga, no, this was the third time that the power interruptions hit NAIA after the Labor Day incident and the New Year's fiasco. Pero ang paglilinaw nga ng MIAA, wala itong, yung nangyari ngayong power outage ay walang kinalaman sa electrical systems but human error. So, dahil nga kasalukuyang nga na ino-undergo nga sa electrical audit itong NAIA, itong Terminal 3, supposedly to avoid nga yung power outage. Pero nangyari nga ito dahil nga hindi nga natanggal itong power cable nung nagsagawa nga ng audit, kaya nagkaroon na naman ng brownout dito sa Terminal 3. But so far, back to normal na nga yung operations at sinasabi nga ng MIAA, tinitignan na nila yung mga paraan para hindi na nga ito maulit, including na nga yung pag-expedite ng procurement ng additional gensets para makapag-supply sila ng additional electrical power in case na magkaroon na naman ng power outage.
Alright, may reaction ba sila dun sa challenge ni Congresswoman Pancho na mag-resign na lahat ng staff ng NAIA bilang ngayon na lumalabas na nga na hindi naman pala kasalanan ng staff ng NAIA ang nangyari today?
Nakasya, the DOTR have yet to release a response doon nga sa statement ni Pancho, no? But the MIAA have already apologized for the inconvenience caused by the incident, and yun nga, they said na they will look into all possible ways to avoid any such recurrence.
All right, thank you so much for that report, Camille Samonte, live to us from NAIA.
The Transportation Department is hoping to publish calls for interested firms to bid for the privatization of NAIA this September. The DOTR said privatization would make NAIA more efficient and at par with its neighbors, stressing that the procurement law slows down the much-needed rehabilitation of the airport. But there's a catch. The terminal fee in NAIA will be increased once privatized. According to DOTR Undersecretary Roberto Lim, the terminal fee at NAIA, which is currently at 550 pesos, is too low compared to Mactan Cebu International Airport, which charges 950 pesos, and Clark International Airport, which charges 750 pesos. Out of the 550 peso terminal fee, only 300 goes to the MIAA for maintenance of facilities. The remaining amount goes to the national government and transport security.
Medyo huli na talaga ang adjustment ng passenger service charge sa NAIA. We really want to maintain as low as possible a realistic level naman yung passenger service charge that would make it workable for a facility to make its investments and improvements.
Okay, pag nag-charge sila ng terminal fee siguro na 950 sa NAIA, baka talagang magalit na yung mga tao. Di ba yung gas you pay for?
I get the point that they all have to be at par with each other. But on the other hand, we were just reporting that there have been 3 outages so far this year, almost always on the eve of a holiday.
Pakiramdam ko naman kapag people see improvement in
They were-
maintenance,
of
people
course.
will be willing to pay.
Exactly, and they did see improvement over at the Mactan Cebu International Airport
Naku,
with the PPP,
galing na ako
pati sa
dun.
Clark.
Laking
Ang ganda, di ba?
difference, oo.
So okay lang sa'yo magbayad 950, di ba? Kasi nakikita mo na gumaganda
No
siya.
matter how much you pay, though, that's not gonna preempt human error.
That's true.
Human error is human error. So.
That's true. So, human error ang naging rason today. Eto naman guys, ready na ba kayo? Friday, bad news ulit. Meralco has increased its electricity rate for the 2nd straight month. The power distributor announced an increase of 42 centavos per kilowatt hour in its overall rate this month of June from 11 pesos and 49 centavos per kilowatt hour in May. The upward adjustment translates to an increase of about 84 pesos in the total bill of a residential customer consuming 200 kilowatt hours a month. Before this, Meralco had already warned of higher electricity bills in June, as the company had already given out the final tranche of a distribution-related refund to customers that tempered hikes in rates. But it is also possible that electricity rates will fall in the coming months, provided that there are no significant movements in the prices of petroleum and the exchange rate.
Usually ho yung consumption peaks from March to June. But starting July and this early, the weather forecaster Pag-asa already announced that we are in the rainy season. So you will also similarly see consumption patterns go lower compared to the summer months, especially when the heat index was very high.
Meanwhile, PHIVOLCS is keeping an eye on Taal volcano in Batangas. The Office of Civil Defense has been coordinating with concerned government agencies on possible interventions in case Taal's unrest worsens. But despite the current situation, PHIVOLCS has given the go signal for tourists and individuals to go to Taal during the long weekend. Authorities, though, are reminding residents near Taal to mask up to protect against fog or the haze around the area that contains volcanic dust and gases. Magasuot po tayo ng N95 kung pupunta po doon. And following the raising of Alert Level 3 at Mayon Volcano, the local government of Albay has placed the province under a state of calamity. Let's get more updates on the ground. And the latest on Mayon, we have with us News 5 reporter Gio Robles reporting live from Albay. Gio, how is the situation over there? How is the Mayon Volcano looking like right now?
Gretchen, before we talk about the state of Albay being placed under state of calamity, earlier today, PHIVOLCS reported this Friday morning that rockfall events in Mayon Volcano increased from 98 yesterday to 199 in its latest bulletin in the past 24 hours. And just earlier from now, before we go on air, we observed a crater glow from the Mayon Volcano. The glow is an indication that magma beneath the volcano is moving up towards the crater, which could lead to a possible eruption. When it comes now to the evacuation, there is an ongoing evacuation in many areas surrounding Mayon Volcano or within the 6-kilometer radius. So ngayon, paiba-iba din yung sitwasyon ng Mayon Volcano. Medyo tahimik siya ngayong araw. Walang masyadong mga rockfall na visible siguro sa mata natin, no? Pero bago nga tayo pumasok sa ere kanina ay paunti-unti na nakikita natin yung crater glow dito nga sa bunganga ng Mayon. Gretchen, Regina, Sean?
Yes, Gio, matanong ko lang, may umiikot kasi sa mga group chat ngayon na video galing sa Mayon at makikita natin, mukha siyang parang, alam mo yung firecracker na fountain, may konting mga lumiliyab dun sa taas. Nakita nyo ba yan kagabi, ngayong gabi? Hindi kasi namin, it came from a group chat so we don't know kung saan at kung ano yung date nitong video. Gayon ba ang nakikita mo? At nakikita natin sa mga pictures ngayon on air, meron ngang parang kulay orange doon sa taas ng bulkan.
So, yes, last night around 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. meron ngang crater glow din na nakita dito sa Mayon Volcano. And I think we used some photos from a netizen which he gave us permission to. Si Jericho Salas, nakuha niya yung mga larawan na yon ng crater glow sa Mayon Volcano mula sa bahagi ng Albay sa may bayan ng Daraga. And kasabay nga ng crater glow na yun, may mga rockfall events kung nakikita natin sa malayo, parang sasabihin natin parang lava flow siya, right? Kasi parang may mga orange stripes na from the side ng volcano. Pero nung nakipag-usap tayo sa PHIVOLCS, kasi natanong natin kung ito ba phreatic eruption na ba ito or steam-driven eruption na ba ito. Pero sabi naman ng PHIVOLCS, ng mga resident volcanologists sa Mayon Volcano Observatory, tawag pa lang nila ito, crater glow pa lang naman at wala pang eruption na naitala sa Mayon Volcano so far. Sean.
Gio, sorry, paiba-iba yung kausap mo. Si Reg na to. I just wanted to ask kasi you mentioned that evacuations have begun, right? So I'm just wondering where the residents were evacuated to and approximately how many are we talking about?
Yung target ng Albay province is 10,000 na mga residente within the 6-kilometer PDZ o ito yung tinatawag natin na permanent danger zone. Pero as of tonight, wala pa tayong exact na bilang kung ilan na ba talaga ang mga nailikas. So ilan yung number ng mga evacuation sites natin within these towns covered ng mandatory evacuation since alert level 3 na tayo. 115 evacuation centers. Hinihintay na lang natin kung ilan na yung tumugon doon or sumunod sa paglikas. Pero kasi kanina sa pag-iikot din natin sa mga bayan ng Ginubatan at saka sa Kamalig, may mga residente pa rin na mas pinili na to stay stay muna sa kanilang mga bahay to check on their properties and their livelihood, especially yung mga alaga nilang hayop, no? So ongoing yung mandatory evacuation. Sabi ng Albay Provincial Office nga, it will take 2 days bago makumpleto itong evacuation ng 10,000 residents. Imagine, 10,000 people will be mobilized to these evacuation centers. At sa 10,000 na katao na yan, isipin din natin, let's imagine gaano karami yung kailangan pakainin ng LGU, ang kailangan supply ng tubig and all of that. So sa ngayon, wala pa tayong exact na bilang ng mga residente na sumunod na so far dito sa mandatory evacuation amid level 3 status of Mayon Volcano. Regina, Sean, Gretchen.
Yeah, Gio, very quick clarification lang, no? Mandatory evacuation ang ibig sabihin, no, kapag alert level 3, pero nabanggit mo nga na parang may choice pa sila, pwede pa silang manatili doon. So, mandatory ba or hindi? At bakit hindi sumusunod yung iba? Kung mandatory, binibigyan ba sila ng pagkakataon or ng chance ng LGU na, ayusin muna yung mga ari-arian nila, yung mga alaga nilang hayop, etc.?
Sean, that we did not confirm yet sa mga LGU kung may agreement sila with the residents. Pero kasi kahapon pa lang, alert level 3 na. So most parang yun dapat yung start ng mandatory evacuation Pero sa sinabi nga, sa explanation or sa defense nga ng Albay Province, sa dami ng kailangang paghahanda na kailangan gawin ng mga lokal na pamalaan para mailikas itong mga residente na 10,000 people, ipinagpabukas na lang din nila muna para yun nga, to give time para sa mga evacuation center na maging maayos muna, ma-ready yung mga modular tents, yung mga food packs from DSWD, ma-deliver dito sa mga evacuation site. When it comes naman sa mga ibang residente na medyo sabihin natin matigas yung ulo, ayaw munang lumikas kasi yung paliwanag dyan ng ibang mga lokal na opisyal, yun nga, karamihan sa kanila hindi maiwan yung kanilang mga livelihood. Mostly mga farmers ito, mga magsasaka, may mga alagang hayop o takot talagang iwanan yung kanilang mga ari-arian. Pero yung prioritize today ng mga lokal na officials natin ay magdala muna sa evacuation center number 1, yung mga matatanda, yung mga bata at saka yung mga nanay. At saka yung mga tatay naman, yun muna yung mga naiwan dito sa kanilang mga tahanan. Kasi sa pakikipag-usap din natin sa mga residente, alam mo yung level 3 status, parang sanay na dito yung mga tao. Hindi pa talaga sila masyadong nangangamba so far. Mostly sa nakausap natin, although mixed naman talaga yung reaction. Yung isa daw sa mga palatandaan lang talaga nila na medyo kinakabahan na yung mga residente dito dahil sanay na sila dito sa Bulkang Mayon. Kung itim na usok na talaga yung lumalabas sa Bulkang Mayon.
Thank you very much for those updates. And thank you for giving us context kung bakit ayaw umalis ng mga kababayan natin dyan. No? Intindihin din natin. Nagpapakain din sila ng hayop, hindi basta-basta maiwan. But mag-ingat po kayo dyan over the long weekend. News 5 reporter Gio Robles reporting to us live from Legazpi, Albay.
Alleged drug lord Kerwin Espinosa has been acquitted of charges related to drug trading. In its decision, the Makati Regional Trial Court Branch 65 said that the prosecution failed to provide sufficient evidence on the case. However, Espinosa will remain in detention as he is still facing drug-related charges in Manila and Leyte. Back in 2021, Espinosa and several others were indicted by the Justice Department over the illegal drug trade in Western Visayas. We're going to pause for a quick break now, but up next, 3 former Senate leaders strongly advise the current Senate leadership to revert the Maharlika Investment Fund Act of 2023 back to the plenary and correct its supposed erroneous provisions or face legal problems. One of them is former Senate President Tito Soto, who will join us live after the break to give us his thoughts on the bill. Stay with us.
You're still watching the big story here on One News. 3 former Senate presidents believe that it is best to recall the Maharlika bill to give lawmakers enough time to rectify the errors in the measure. The bill has not yet been transmitted to the Office of the President for signing due to an error in the sections covering the prescriptive period. Sections 50 and 51 contain different prescriptive periods for punishable offenses under the proposed law. For former Senate President Franklin Drilon, one option is to reconsider its approval and have the measure submitted to the period of amendments. Drilon explained that once a bill has received the seal of approval from both chambers, it can no longer be changed, except for minor clerical errors. Former Senate President Tito Sotto echoed the same view, saying that changes to the prescriptive period cannot be done by the Senate Secretariat. He said that any retouch must be done in the plenary. Incumbent Senate Minority Leader and former Senate President Coco Pimentel also said that, quote, perfecting the bill outside the Senate floor may constitute a crime.
Joining us for a conversation on the Maharlika bill is former Senate President Tito Sotto. Tito Sen, balik politika po muna tayo. Pahinga muna tayo sa noontime show. Nabanggit na nga ni Majority Leader Senator Joel na hindi pa raw enrolled yung bill na ito. Kaya pwede pa raw palit-palitan. Pero sabi ninyo, sabi rin ni Senator Coco Pimentel at ni dating Senator Frank Drilon na you all agree na hindi pwede. Dapat talaga i-recall yung bill. So, hindi kasi pinapalabas nila na parang clerical error lang ito kasi napag-usapan na naman daw sa plenary, Tito Sen, yung tamang prescriptive period. So, hindi ba talaga pwede galawin ng secretariat na lang?
Those are the rules. That's what the Constitution provides. Pag hindi natin sinunod ang mga rules, delikado yan. For example, merong first reading, may second reading, may third reading. Pagkatapos ng third reading, they go into a bicameral conference committee kung there are discrepancies or disagreeing provisions from the House version and the Senate version. Pag natapos yung bicameral conference committee, binabalik yan sa kanilang mga houses for ratification para i-ratify kung ano laman nung bill na pinasa nilang pareho. O yan na yung i-enroll. If there is a discrepancy or some error after that, after ratification, you cannot touch it. It is untouchable, especially by someone, secretariat. To give you a very concrete example, it has been through the years. Ganun talaga yan. And this is how tiny it can get. In May 15 of 1990, during the 8th Congress, Concurrent Resolution 21 was passed by both houses of Congress to correct House Bill 5269. Ang pinalitan lang is ginawang plural R. That's how delicate it is. Because what happens is after ratification of both houses, somebody can touch it before it is given to the president. That's not done. That is never done. And it should not be allowed because it is very dangerous.
Tito Sen, ibig sabihin po, bawal po ba kahit anong minor revision given the example that you just mentioned? And in your experience, does this happen often? Or puyat lang po ba? Kaya nagkaganon?
It does not happen. It does not happen often. And if it does, it is corrected right away. Siguro medyo talagang nabigla lang sila because they're on adjournment sine die. But if they're not in adjournment sine die, they can easily call it back. Call back the ratification and then back to the period of amendments, amend the proper number or whatever provision that is in question. O pagkatapos ibalik nila sa BICAM. Pwede naman paper BICAM din eh. When I say paper BICAM, pwede magtawagan na lang yung mga leader ng BICAM. Sapagkat napagkasunduan na yun lang ang papalitan. So yun, ginagawa yun. But then, the secretariat of any of the houses will do that. Or even Malacanang. It's not allowed. Like for example, enrolled bill na yan. Pinadala sa Malacanang. Pagdating sa Malacanang, yung PMS, ginalaw. Ay bawal yun. Yes, it could be a crime. And if there are people against the Maharlika bill, this is going to be their bullet, a silver bullet when it comes to the the Supreme Court when they bring it to the Supreme Court because they did something unconstitutional. Oh, kaya yun ang mabigat.
Tito Sen, you said nagulat sila. Do I take it to mean you think that they rushed this bill? I mean, to put it into context, we only started talking about Maharlika in December, June pa lang. So we got it passed within 6 months, basically. Did you think that was too
Well,
fast?
it was passed swiftly in the House of Representatives. In the Senate, I'm hearing, I'm not private to what happened there, but I'm hearing yung mga kwento ng mga colleagues ko dati na meron pa silang maraming tanong. Marami pa silang gusto sana na naging hearing. So probably, well, you can say it, they tried their best to pass it swiftly because there was a certification of urgency by the president. But when a president certifies urgent a bill, it doesn't mean that you have to pass it right away. The certification of urgency only means you can do away with the 3-day rule. Because there is a 3-day rule after you pass it on second reading, you cannot pass it on third reading unless you pass it after 3 days. Bakit 3 days? Ang nakalagay sa konstitusyon. Sapagkat yun yung i-review mabuti kung tama lahat ang salita na naroon. O, sinertify urgent. Hindi sila nag 3-day rule. Pinasa nila na third reading. Nag-bycam. Di sumabit. Hindi na-review mabuti. Hindi na-review mabuti.
So some of the current senators didn't get a chance to ask all their questions, basically, is what you're saying. Is yung narinig nyo po?
Yeah, Regina. By the way, thank you for this opportunity. Gretchen, Sean, Regina, thank you. Yes, that's what I heard. That's what they told me.
All right. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us tonight and your time, of course, former Senate President Tito Soto.
Kapatid.
All right. After this break, we will be back with more stories. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching the big story here on One News. What else do we have on this Friday night?
Some good news. Reg?
Well, we did have labor report from April that came in today. We've got fairly good numbers. Let's take a look. Jobless rate went down to 4.5% in April. That translates to about 2.26 million unemployed Filipinos. Underemployment, on the other hand, went up month on month, but the figure is still lower compared to the period last year. So overall, the picture is looking better. Economic managers are also keeping a somewhat optimistic outlook. The Development Budget Coordination Committee, or DBCC, adjusted downward their full-year inflation forecast to 5 to 6%. They also kept their 6 to 7% growth assumption for this year. The DBCC said they've already taken into account the risks posed by global trade tensions, El Nino, and other natural disasters.
And with the long weekend right ahead of us, some Filipinos will have to brace themselves for a rainy weekend as Typhoon Chedeng maintains its strength while moving over the Philippine Sea. Pag-asa last spotted Chedeng at 885 kilometers east of northern Luzon. It is packing winds of 130 kilometers per hour and gustiness of up to 160 kilometers per hour. Chedeng will not hit land, but Pag-asa says that the typhoon is now approaching the period when it will be closest to the country. A weakening trend may also begin during the weekend. Though the typhoon is unlikely to directly affect the country, it could still enhance the southwest monsoon, which could bring heavy rainfall in some areas, including Visayas, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, and the Bicol region. The State Weather Bureau expects Chedeng to leave the Philippine area of responsibility on Monday.
And that's it for the show tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you so much for tuning in and good night.